Welcome to News Mongolia on MNB World, where we bring you the latest stories and updates from across the nation and beyond. I am Batsirin Namshar. On the News Mongolia today, Mongolian Red Cross Society, with the financial support of USAID, delivers aid packages to herders affected by the dzud. Mongolia and the ADB signed an agreement to improve access to quality education. Ondos satellite has achieved a successful launch into Earth's orbit. For the news, stay tuned. The U.S. government, through the United Nations Agency for International Development, is assisting an additional 2,000 households in response to the worsening dzud affecting Mongolian herders. This brings the total amount of U.S. government aid committed for dzud assistance in the past month to 3 billion MNT, or about $900,000, which is being used to provide hay, veterinary supplies and cash assistance to 2,700 herder households.
This year's dzud is already considered the worst in more than a decade, as the country is experiencing the heaviest snowfall seen in 49 years, and extreme temperatures continue to impact herder households in 20 of 21 provinces. Government officials estimated at the end of February that 52,000 kilometers of roads were impassable due to adverse weather conditions, making distributing aid even more difficult. It is estimated that 2 million livestock have already perished due to the dzud.
Very focused on the effects of the dzud this year. Last month, in late January, early February, we announced an initial $200,000 donation to the Mongolian Red Cross to support 700 herding families. That's 650 million tugriks, more or less. That money went to help herding families by providing veterinary kits, cash transfers, helping procure fodder. Today, the United States government is announcing an additional 700,000 in donations that will go to World Vision. That will initially do the same, provide more support to 2,000 additional herder families in various IMAGs around Mongolia. And that will also help in clearing of roads in the rural areas, so that way these very, very important help can get to the herding families in faster time.
As the situation is extremely challenging, the Mongolian Red Cross Society set a milestone to provide help for up to 10,000 herder households, reaching 40,000 people affected by the dzud.
2,900 малчин өрхөд туслана.
The aid package includes not only fodder and feed for livestock, but also necessary veterinary drugs and some medical products for the herders.
The government of Mongolia and the Asian Development Bank signed a $15 million additional financing agreement to help improve access to kindergarten, primary and secondary education in Mongolia. The ADB East Asia Department Director General Mohammad Kang and the Finance Minister of Finance. The government of Mongolia and the Asian Development Bank signed a $15 million additional financing agreement to help improve access to kindergarten, primary and secondary education in Mongolia. The ADB East Asia Department Director General Mohammad Kang and the Minister of Finance of Mongolia, Javklum, both signed the agreement at a ceremony in Ulaanbaatar. The ongoing $50 million Sustaining Access to and Quality of Education During Economic Difficulties project was approved in November 2017 to help the government improve access to kindergarten, primary and secondary education. The project will be constructing and updating a total of 21 schools and kindergartens in Qavalte, Darkhnuld and Qavsumber provinces, as well as Ulaanbaatar city. It also supporting curriculum and assessment system reforms, supplying educational materials and training teachers, school managers and local education administrators. The project is strengthening systems for planning and managing education services. The additional financing project will scale up the scope of the ongoing project by constructing, updating and furnishing 3 more schools and 6 more kindergartens. With this, a total of 30 schools and kindergartens will be built and expanded under the overall project, benefiting more than 7,000 children. The project is funded by ADB's concessional ordinary capital resources and is expected to be completed by February 2027. The Ondo Space Company, headquartered in Mongolia, recently launched 2 satellites named OndoSat Owl 1 and OndoSat Owl 2 from California, USA. This marks Mongolia's first commercial artificial satellite launch.
This satellite will operate with Earth's communication infrastructure, paving the way for new opportunities and technological advancements in sectors including mining, agriculture, animal husbandry, emergencies, and the internet.
Besides making these products and services available to companies operating within Mongolia, we're also prepared to introduce them internationally as interconnected solutions or commercial ecosystems. This milestone presents a significant opportunity to showcase that Mongolian youth, equipped with modern technology, can compete globally on an equal footing. Our Ondo Space satellites are engineered to facilitate machine-to-machine communication and contribute to a crucial segment of the main Ondo ecosystem's infrastructure.
The satellites underwent testing at Kyushu University's laboratory in Japan. This time, the Ondo Space Company will deploy its satellites into a low Earth orbit. A total of 170 small satellites are scheduled for launch by 2025.
You are watching News Mongolia. Now let's take a look at the currency exchange rates provided by Mongol Bank. Now let's take a look at international news from our partner agencies. Leaders of the ASEAN-Australia Summit attended a reception hosted by Prime Minister Anthony Albanese in Melbourne on Tuesday. Albanese told leaders that he looked forward to convening with them on Tuesday to continue discussions to affirm our shared vision for the region and to agree on new ways we can support the ASEAN outlook of the Indo-Pacific and achieve a more stable, peaceful, prosperous and secure future.
9 ASEAN leaders and East Timorese Prime Minister Xanana Gusmao were officially welcomed to the summit on Tuesday with a traditional indigenous smoking ceremony that involves burning leaves.
All here to share ideas on accelerating the transition to clean energy and meeting the environmental challenge of climate change. Expanding our maritime cooperation for our shared security and our mutual prosperity, and making sure that the big changes reshaping the global and regional economy are harnessed in the interests of our people. I look forward to convening with my fellow leaders tomorrow to continue our discussions, to affirm our shared vision for the region, and to agree on new ways we can support the ASEAN outlook of the Indo-Pacific and achieve a more stable, peaceful, prosperous, and yes, a secure future.
Southeast Asia nations leaders were welcomed at an official arrival ceremony at the ASEAN-Australia Summit in Melbourne on Tuesday. The leaders posed for a family photo and watched an indigenous smoking ceremony on the second day of the special summit. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese is hosting the summit, marking 50 years since Australia became the bloc's first external partner. Leaders of 9 of the 10 Association of Southeast Asian nations are expected to attend the 3-day summit. Myanmar has been excluded from political representation over its failure to stem violence in that country since a military junta seized control in 2021. Australia, as the summit host, is focused on maritime cooperation, economic ties, climate change, and clean energy. ASEAN members include Brunei, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, the Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam, and they have a combined population of more than 650 million and GDP of more than $3 trillion.
Singapore's Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong said Southeast Asian countries' goal to reach agreement with Beijing on a code of conduct in the South China Sea will take time, with difficult issues yet to be resolved.
Lee was speaking alongside Australia Prime Minister Anthony Albanese at the ASEAN-Australia Special Summit that marks 50 years since Australia became the first official partner of the Southeast Asian bloc. Albanese said Australia always supports the freedom of navigation through the South China Sea. Both leaders also said the outcome and the process of the U.S. elections should be respected.
On the code of conduct, that's the common position of the ASEAN members that we should negotiate a code of conduct on the South China Sea with China. The negotiations have been underway. They are taking some time. They have reached a point, I think, of a first complete read-through of the code of conduct. But to negotiate and to settle the code, I believe, will take some time. The issues are not easy to resolve, and really, negotiating a code of conduct inevitably raises issues of what the ultimate outcomes are going to be. And therefore, because the ultimate answers are difficult, so too negotiating the code will take quite some time.
Australia is a strong supporter of the UN Convention of the Law of the Sea, and we have strongly put our view that freedom of navigation through the South China Sea is important. A large percentage of Australian trade goes through that sea, whether it be on its way to China or to Japan or the Republic of Korea in particular. So it's an important waterway, and we support freedom of navigation. And we also support the application of international law. Our position on China remains very consistent, which is that we want to cooperate where we can, we'll disagree where we must, but we will always engage in our national interest. I think the recent progress has been made in the relationship. That is a good thing. It is always good when dialogue occurs, and that is our position that we'll continue to assert.
China on Tuesday announced a 7.2% increase in its defense budget, which is already the world's second highest behind the United States at 1.6 trillion yuan or $222 billion, roughly mirroring the rise of the last year.
China's Premier Li Qiang spoke of strengthening all-around military training and combat readiness Tuesday to an assembly of nearly 3,000 carefully selected participants loyal to the Communist Party and its leader Xi Jinping. Tensions with the U.S., Taiwan, Japan, and neighbors who share claims to the crucial South China Sea are seen as furthering growth in increasingly high-tech military technologies, from stealth fighters to aircraft carriers and a growing arsenal of nuclear weapons. Li said China will stay committed to peaceful foreign policy and pursue a strategy of mutual benefit and win-win. On Taiwan, he repeated the official one-China position and the aim of reunification. The official budget figure announced Tuesday at the opening of the legislature's annual meeting is considered only a fraction of spending by the People's Liberation Army, the military wing of the ruling Communist Party, once spending on research and development and foreign weapons purchases are considered.
Now let's take a look at the other global current affairs.
Russian soldiers fighting in Ukraine are taking part in early voting for Russia's presidential election, the military reported. The Russian Defense Ministry and the National Guard released videos on Tuesday showing servicemen casting their ballots. The voting is taking place in the rear areas of what Russia calls the special military operation in Ukraine. Any Russian citizen over the age of 18 who is not serving time in prison can vote in the country's presidential election. Voting will be carried out over 3 days between March 15th to 17th. It is the first presidential election in Russia when polls will be open for 3 days instead of 1.
Now let's take a look at the weather forecast for Mongolia and world major cities. Well, that's all for today. Thank you for staying with us. We'll see you on Thursday with more news and updates. Goodbye.